Remember that whole replacement theory thing? That's terrible, terrible nonsense about the party that is largely the Democrats, academia, media, wanting to import a lot of brand new people to shift the balance of power towards a government that has enough power to give you everything you need, which therefore, of course, means the government has enough power to take everything you have. Remember that terrible theory? This notion that the open borders, which has actually resulted in Democrat cities having 23 to maybe even 28 extra congressional seats. Remember that nonsense? Remember the nonsense that there was a drive to replace Americans who've been here a long time. And we can have the discussion about Native Americans. It's a fair discussion. Happy to do it, or the First Peoples as you like. But that whole notion that the open borders policy was all on purpose. Well, in order to not believe that, here's some things you also need to believe. You'd need to believe that the government forgot how to secure the border. You would need to believe that a Democrat National Committee that built fences around their event this week and then last night was bolstering those fences after Hamas supporters who may have come in through open borders breached them. That same party forgot how to build a wall. That same party forgot that if you send DHS agents to secured gates on our border and cut them open, you're actually letting people in mass. They forgot that. They forgot that giving illegal immigrants a pass you can use to skip over the border, to fly into the country directly, then you'd need to believe that they forgot, oh gosh, that might have people coming in. You simply cannot believe that the open borders policy is not on purpose. And you simply cannot believe that the Democrats haven't at least noticed that it's shifting power away from the constitutionally provisioned electoral college count. Never let a good crisis go to waste. It may have been that the refusal to secure the border was simply political. They were afraid of the backlash by liberals. And never let a good crisis go to waste. So they may have looked at this and said, hey, look what's happening. Why are we trying to stop this? Why would we arrest this at all? So when I saw these videos making their way online and I saw them getting a lot of traffic, I wondered, is this a coordinated effort? I would tell you I think it is. And I'll tell you the signs of that in a second, because it does look like a coordinated effort. When you're studying things, you're studying sort of pattern recognition, you begin to see things like that. I'm noticing a pattern with people who purchase the OxyPure Thunderstorm 2 from EdenPureDeals.com. Here's some of the patterns I'm noticing. In some cases, they're using this for spaces that have heretofore been really miserable to occupy. For instance, a gentleman sent me a note about using this in his shop. His shop is small and tiny and windowless, and he works in there because it's his love. It's a little wood shop. And he uses the OxyLeaf 2 Thunderstorm device from EdenPureDeals.com to bring a sense of fresh air into that because it destroys bad molecules. In his case, this sweat from his own body. It's a small little space with no windows, and it's miserable in there. Now, they're working on getting a bigger space, but until they do that, this actually produces ozone in that space, negates the bad smells, and even negates viruses because O3 bonds to these bad molecules. I'm also noticing this trend. People using it as an air purifier for things like cars and Jeeps and cabins prior to people going into using them. It works the same way. Just plug it into the wall, boom, it takes care of the bad smells very, very quickly. There's one in our studio. I've got two of these at home. I'll save you $200 right now on the Eden Pure OxyLeaf 2. Just go to EdenPureDeals.com, enter code Todd3, boom, like that. You're breathing a breath of fresh air, and you save $200. EdenPureDeals.com, use code Todd3. So when I saw these videos coming out of people who are in the country illegally, and some of them, to their defense, and let's be fair, some of them have been here for 20 years. That's a broken system. They shouldn't be here for 20 years without some sort of status, right? Without some sort of legalized status. It's broken on the side of enforcement. It's also broken on the side of actually looking at, hey, are these people going to be good citizens? So I saw the videos gaining traction, and then I looked at the hashtags and who's distributing them and what else they do, and look at that. It looks like a coordinated effort. Before I got into this, long ago when I was a digital strategist, we used efforts like this. So I'm pretty good at going back and reverse engineering. How did this make it on so many people's radar screens? Here is this video, or at least one of them that I noticed.
Hi, my name's Anna, and I've been living in the U.S. since I was 2 years old, so I've been here for the past 25 years. As a non-citizen, I've never been eligible to vote in this country. However, ever since moving to D.C., I learned that I actually can register to vote, which once I learned that, I was so excited. And if you're also a non-citizen living in D.C., I would encourage you to go to the Board of Elections website to learn more about how you can register to vote in D.C.
We have such a large population of immigrants in the city, but we don't have the power or representation that we deserve. You have the opportunity now to register to vote and make sure your voice is heard in the halls of power in Washington, D.C. If you are a non-citizen who has lived in D.C. for at least 30 days and does not plan to vote in any other elections, I encourage you to register to vote.
If you're a non-citizen who lives in D.C. and doesn't plan to vote in any other elections, plans are things that can change. And for 30 days, you could have voting in U.S. elections as vacation. It's a good thing that our adversaries would never use such a thing. Now, it's just municipal elections. It's just municipal. Just like abortion is just for cases of or incest or the life of the mother. Just that. Well, and then just within 30 days of being pregnant. Well, then 60, 90. Well, then in Maryland, they floated the idea of being allowed to starve a baby of water or fluids after the baby was born. You know, if you had a regret. But just that, not actively killing the baby you took home. It's just like our Social Security cards. They used to say on them, the originals, not to be used as a form of ID, just like the income tax. The income tax was just for the stinking, filthy top 1%. This is just the voter rolls. It's just municipal. And here's what we know around the country, is that once people are on voter rolls, it's incredibly difficult to get them off voter rolls. We know that Democrats will fight through the courts to do everything they can to keep dead people on the voter rolls. People who've been dead since the 1800s are registered to vote in some states. We know Cloward Piven, the strategy. Francis Fox Piven was actually in the Rose Garden with William Jefferson Blythe Clinton III, Slick Willie, as Rush Limbaugh called him, God rest the Maha. She was there to celebrate the motor voter law. Why? Because it's Cloward Piven. Flood the systems of a capitalist country to take it down. If it runs on votes, flood it with votes. If it runs on immigration, flood it with immigration. If it runs on money, flood it with money, and hence our inflationary policies. She's a brilliant woman, and she's deeply dangerous, and she's still renowned in leftist circles as a political thinker and activist. So the flooding of the system is clearly a design. It's clearly about replacing American votes, or at least the American Electoral College, and in this case, yes, American votes. Those votes cancel the citizens' votes if they're voting for different people. Now, the alarms on this can get higher and higher and higher. Rob Law, former UC SCIS policy chief, is director for Center for Homeland Security and Immigration, now works at the America First Foundation. He analyzed some of Kamala Harris's platform pledges and found that the U.S. Citizenship Act, he looked into this. He calls it the most radical amnesty bill ever written. Amnesty for human traffickers and gang members, no welfare restriction for migrants, and lets deportees return, and worse. There's a link on this in the show notes so you yourself can look at it. You cannot reasonably believe that these things are not being done on purpose. They didn't forget how to secure borders. They didn't forget how to hold an election. But they didn't this year. Not at the DNC, they didn't hold an election. And here's how far gone many of the supporters of Kamala Harris are, and many of the supporters of the open borders policy. These people in this video are wearing woke masks and playing banjos and guitar, and they are informing a group of people of something. They're standing up to a group of people. This is outside the Democrat convention, where they did a roll call count of the states. Magically, all the states issued their votes for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, though there was no election. That's one heck of a safe and secure election. Nothing's more secure than not holding an election and then saying you held an election. Outside that event, people in woke masks sang this song. Oh, you fascists found to lose. You found to lose. You fascists found to lose. And as they're singing, a guy walks up in a Hamas scarf with a black mask covering his face. They're all covering their faces. Nothing says fascists are going to lose like backing Hamas. I don't think they should perform as an instrumental unit. I'm gonna tell you fascists, you might be surprised. Fact is this, that the division in the country and the piping into the brains of young people like that fascism is that which offends, is one of the most brilliant moves in the history of politics. Fascism is that which offends, that which makes one feel uncomfortable. And let me just remind everybody of this. None of it's new. Not a bit of it's new. There were plenty of young people in biblical times who watched Jesus perform miracles, and then they didn't follow him. They saw him raise people from the dead. He's Lazarus. There were young people there. And they didn't follow him. There were old people as well. There's that cliche, none are so blind as those who refuse to see. We can see all this. And so how do we respond? We should scream at people. We should own the libs. We should hate the migrants. Nope. We have to respond in love and to speak through the lenses of caring and fairness. So here's some questions. How is it fair for the Democrat Party to call Kamala Harris the nominee when no one voted for her? How is it caring to Americans to allow non-citizens to vote when that cancels out the votes of existing citizens? How is it not more fair to actually require a process to enter the country? After all, we don't know who's coming in except we do. I think it's about 200,000 children that HHS just announced they've lost track of, trafficked victims. Well, they were trafficked across the border. They just don't know where the kids are anymore. How is that caring or fair? Those are the sort of questions that we should ask uncommitted voters to cause them to stop and think and to not become a crowd of people sitting outside of a fascist event saying they're going to stop fascists. That's something to think about.